Hello and welcome to today's video on choosing the right evaluator. So as an evaluation company, we know how important it is to really be able to maximize your investment, but we also understand that sometimes organizations walk into this as it's a grant requirement, we feel like we need an evaluator, or just all around someone's telling us, hey, you should get an evaluator. But what you might not know is what you should be asking yourself and really how to walk into that conversation when it comes to choosing an evaluator. So today we're going to kind of walk through some different things, and this is going to kind of be your guide to maximize your evaluation investment. Next, we have our learning objectives for today's video, and those are going to be understand the purpose of evaluation, learn how evaluation differs from research, key considerations when selecting an evaluator and how to identify those, understanding how to assess evaluator fit and expertise, and lastly, gain practical steps for maximizing evaluation investment. So these are just some key things to keep in mind as we go through today, as we hope you are able to gain the knowledge on all, if not at least some of these areas to help you better select an evaluator for your organization. And just to kind of get the feel for some of you that might be watching, we'd love for you to put down in the comments maybe what one of your primary reasons for seeking evaluation support is. Now, to get into today's content, we're going to start with that question of research versus evaluation. When you look at the definition of evaluation, it can tend to be like, oh, that's basically just research. But really, at the end of the day, these two are very different. They go hand in hand, but they can be very different. So we wanted to make sure that that line is clearly drawn. And we're going to start with research. So what is research? This is going to be more of your work that's going to generate new knowledge, test theories. It tends to have broad applicability, as well as focusing on discovery. So, a lot of your colleges do a lot of different research. They're looking at new theories, testing theories, and different things like that. They want to find new information, new knowledge. Whereas the evaluation side is going to be more of your work that's going to improve programs or organizations. It's going to assess the effectiveness and impact. That's a big one. That's a big kind of information, I guess you could say, to help you differentiate between evaluation and research, is really knowing that research is kind of to generate new knowledge, and evaluation is basically to assess effectiveness and impact of said work, whether that's program, a practice, whatever that is. And then lastly, evaluation helps focus on decision making. So that's where it can be really helpful for our organizations who maybe you guys are stuck in this decision-making rut. You're not sure where to go with your work or what to really focus on. That's where evaluation can be super helpful, because we can help kind of tune out all the noise and look at the data and focus it on, hey, where do we need to focus? How can we make the decisions that are going to best fit our organization and our community? The key takeaway we want you to get here is that evaluation is not research. Evaluation is a tool for learning and improvement. So if that's kind of something that you take away from this, that is one of the big things, that evaluation is not research, it's a tool for learning and improvement. So now let's get into more, why does evaluation matter? So at the end of the day, sometimes people see evaluation as a nuisance. Why do I have to do this? What is this going to actually do for me? How is this going to help my organization or my community? So with that, we're going to get into kind of some different areas where evaluation can help support, whether that be your community, your organization, maybe it's even, you personally or on an internal level for your staff. But these are kind of the 5 main areas that evaluation helps support. And that's going to be improvement, coordination, accountability, celebration, and sustainability. So we're going to kind of break each of these down here in a second. But basically, we want you to think of this as evaluation helps organizations tell their story of impact with confidence. So here at ECS, that's kind of one of our whole slogans is we want to help you tell your story of impact, and we want to help you do that in a confident way. And that's what evaluation is really there to help you do. So when we're looking at improvement in terms of how it's going to support evaluation, you're going to look at this more as how your program is effective. So whether it's effective or not, really at the end of the day, that's what we need to know is what we're doing affecting our community and having the said change we hope to see. It can also improve service delivery. So are the services that we're providing helping, hindering? Is there a better way we can do it? It can also improve strategic initiatives. So this is where that kind of internal side of things comes in, and being able to look at the broader picture and say, what is something that we could continue to push in on? We're doing good. We should continue to do work there versus maybe, hey, we've been doing some work here, not seeing a lot of traction. Do we need to pull back on it? Do we need to push more on it? Maybe look at a different way to do it. There's tons of different things that can kind of pull into that when it comes to our strategic initiatives. There's also organizational capacity, so it can help improve our capacity as a whole. And then also the impact we have on community. So whether or not we're seeing an improvement there, it's going to be able to tell us that when we are looking at evaluating our organization as a whole and even its parts and pieces. When you are talking to your coalition, your board members, your stakeholders, when you guys are talking about maybe looking for an evaluator, a key thing to keep in mind is what is one area of your organization's work you wish you understood better? We all have that, especially if you were to go out and ask your stakeholders, your board members, even just your regular organization members that. Maybe it's sector reps. What is one thing they wish they knew better about the organization? I guarantee you each of them can name at least one thing. And when you bring that to the table for an evaluator, it might help them be able to improve your evaluation plan and be able to tell that story and help you all understand your organization better at the end of the day, which is going to improve your work and improve the way you serve your community. So next we have coordination and accountability. We kind of loop these two together. They kind of go hand in hand. But basically, coordination is going to be kind of, does your work align with staff efforts? Are you supporting partnerships? It's going to help coordinate and create consistent data systems. A big thing with evaluation is you have to have an evaluation plan. We can't evaluate anything without a plan. So it's going to help you kind of be more consistent, have those systems in place so we can get the data we need to really evaluate and see where are we seeing the change, where are we not seeing the change, and making those adjustments. And in terms of coordination, it can also help improve communication. So we definitely want to have that as well, because the better we communicate, the better our work is, and the better we serve our communities. Next, you have accountability. This is where it's going to demonstrate progress. So we all love to see, that progress bar. Hey, are we working towards our goals? What are we seeing get accomplished? Whether it's short-term, long-term, where are we at kind of on that pendulum of progress? It's going to help us measure outcomes. We're going to have provided evidence for stakeholders. So at the end of the day, I feel like most people in today's world are more of the show me the money people. You can talk a good game all you want sometimes, but people are like, I love what you're talking about. I love the work you say you're doing. But where are these numbers? Show me what evidence you have that you have been doing this work, that you can do this work and continue to do it. So the accountability part is really big when it comes to evaluation and kind of what it can help improve. And then lastly, it helps support transparency. Kind of going along with that hand in hand of kind of the evidence for stakeholders is also that transparency piece. If they have this buy-in, they're going to be one of your sector reps, they're going to be a board member. They want to have that transparency. They want to see, as an organization, what are our goals? Are we working towards those goals? How are we working towards them? What kind of progress have we made? And having that evaluation plan in place and an evaluator that understands where your organization is at and helps you guys build a plan based on what you want to have and that transparency, it's night and day on what you guys can do and achieve then at the end of the day. So when it comes to this, just keep that in mind. You kind of have your coordination, your accountability. The last two that we talked about was kind of the celebration and sustainability impact that evaluation can have. So evaluation really does a great job at capturing major outcome successes, capacity growth, new partnerships, as well as expanded strategies. And at the end of the day, good evaluation is really going to help an organization secure more funding, renew grants, build credibility, and tell compelling stories. Those are our 5 kind of ways that evaluation improves your work. Now we want to get into the steps to take when finding an evaluator, because we said today, when it comes to choosing an evaluator, a lot of times you might walk into those meetings with potential evaluators, and sometimes you might not know what to say. Hopefully a good evaluator is able to kind of pull that out of you via some different questions, conversation, but it's always good to have your own kind of list of questions and things you hope to ask an evaluator to help you at the end of the day make the decision on, is this a good fit? So some things we suggest as an organization that provides evaluation services, as well as some of our staff were even in the seats you might find yourself in today as, organization project directors, coordinators, any of those kind of things. Our staff comes from that experience as well. So we hope these following steps help you kind of transition that gap a bit and hopefully find yourselves a good evaluator. First things first. Step 1, determine why you need an evaluator. Just because someone tells you might need one, or it seems like you might need one, it's still important to ask ourselves, what's the real reason behind us looking for an evaluator? For some people, that's as easy as, it's a requirement by a funder. They told us we have to have an evaluator. Okay. It could also be that it's the goal, is the goal program improvement? Is it because we want to improve? So do we need someone to help us kind of with an outside, I don't want to say an outside, kind of look in to say, hey, are we improving or not? Do you need outcome data? And then lastly, are you planning for sustainability? Our first tip here that we're going to kind of start bringing in, so you're going to see some tips throughout, is make sure to clarify expectations before seeking proposals. As an evaluation company, we'd love to have that sit down conversation, whether it's, via Zoom, if we're in your area, if it's in person, whatever that looks like. We like to sit down and have that conversation. We like to have clear purpose. We want to know what you guys are looking for, as well as the easier it is to find, the clearer the purpose, the easier it is to find the right evaluator. So that's our process. We don't tend to ask you a whole bunch of information via email. We'd rather just sit down with you, talk through what your organization looks like, the community you serve, and really get a feel for the way you guys operate as an organization currently to hopefully help bridge that, gap between what you need and how we can help you via evaluation. So step 2 is then understand the available resources. When it comes to paying for evaluation, it's important to understand the staff time allotted. Depending on what type of evaluator you go with, there can be staff time involved. A good evaluator should work with your organization, not next to. So sometimes that can require some staff time. So just keep that in mind when it comes to looking for an evaluator, understanding what staff time you have allotted for kind of meeting, check-ins, and different things that might need to happen. Understanding your budget. At the end of the day, it comes down to money. What does your budget look like for paying for evaluation services? Do you have any existing data systems that you're currently using? Maybe you're paying for them, maybe you're not. And then also your project timeline. Is this, we just received a 5-year grant. We want evaluation services for those 5 years and possibly longer. Awesome. Is this something, hey, we're at the end of our grant cycle. We just kind of want some evaluation resources for the next 1 to 2 years to help with sustainability transition and that kind of stuff. Awesome. We're here for whatever your needs may be, and we understand It's not always a one size fits all. So just make sure you know that stuff going into that conversation with a possible evaluator. This is also where tip 2 comes in. Just remember, human capital is often the largest driver of evaluation cost. Step 3 is to define the scope of work. This is really going to start with kind of what are your required deliverables? What are your funders' expectations? What are your reporting requirements? These are 3 main things that we tend to bring up in that kind of first conversation with possible new clients when it comes to looking for evaluation services, because most of the time this is where people are usually at, is one of these 3 areas, all of these 3, 2 of these 3, whatever it is. Usually it's kind of where we like to start. So if you guys know where you're at with a lot of those things, it's helpful. But it's also helpful for you guys then to ask, what story do we want to tell with our data? Make sure you have kind of a plan in place for, we're a new organization. We want to be able to tell, like, we're starting from here and going, improving the community via A, B, C, and D. Have some of that things thought out. It's really helpful for an evaluator to be able to take that and say, okay, here's what we need to do. This is some ideas. Whereas if you guys are still unsure, that's okay. And that's okay to realize you don't know what kind of story you want to tell yet. That's why we're here. That's why we want to help you kind of iron out some of those different details to figure out what is the best way to kind of plan this out via the story we hope to maybe tell. And then another good question to ask is, what additional insights would benefit your organization? Sometimes we tend to get very narrow-minded. If it's a grant requirement, we got to be able to meet A, B, C, and D deliverables. We have to submit data for this report. Okay, good, we're done. We tend to sometimes get very narrow-minded in that, instead of thinking sometimes outside the box and saying, well, we have to do this stuff. But while we're doing the stuff we need to do, could we also maybe get some other benefits and insights on, C, D, E, and F, or, whatever that may be? Another good question to ask is, how can evaluation support long-term goals? Sometimes, again, we get very narrow-minded and we have to have an evaluator for our grant. It's a requirement. We have to report for this funder every year, every twice a year, every quarter. We can sometimes get very narrow-minded in the things we have to do right here and now. And it's not always easy to picture long-term sustainability, but that's the great thing about evaluation is sometimes we have the flexibility to think long-term, to think outside the box and say, if there were no guidelines and, we could do whatever we wanted, where could we maybe want to grow long-term? And then it's easier to kind of rein it in and say, okay, well, sustainability-wise, what can we do? What should we be doing now? What should we be doing 2 years from now, 3, 4, 5, and then kind of look at that in terms of long-term. That can be helpful as well. So that's kind of like our step 3, really defining the scope as a bulk of where you should spend your time when sussing out, an evaluator, whether it's meeting with them, communicating via email, really making sure you are defining that scope of work so everyone's on the same page is one of the most important parts. Step 4 is to identify potential evaluators. Most of the time nowadays, everyone is very quick to Google search something. However, we really want to try and steer you away from that when it comes to an evaluator, only because one of our best tips is to look at other peer organizations first and ask them maybe who their evaluator is. Who have they had in the past? Do they have any bad experiences, good experiences? Because a peer organization that does similar and or the same work as you might have a great recommendation that they use. Now, keep in mind, evaluators are not a one-size-fits-all. So someone who, a peer organization might love and, they're a great evaluator, they might sing their praises. You might start working with them and realize it's just not a good fit. And that's okay. That's totally okay. But looking at your current peer organizations and who they might use is a good place to start. Another good place to start is ask your community partners. You guys have buy-in, you have stakeholders, you have sector representatives. Ask them if they know of any good community partners that, would be a good fit for looking for an evaluator for your work. There's other professional networks that you can tap into to look for evaluators as well, and any other kind of trusted referrals you may come across. Like we said, we like to suggest avoiding that solely kind of internet search, kind of based on rankings, because it's not always reliable. Nowadays, people can pay to be top of the list or, get ads up there to be seen more. It's not always going to mean that you're going to get a good service, quality service at the end of the day. Where it could be a good place to kind of tap into if you're stuck or looking for more options, that's fine. But then it's always good to kind of branch out and explore that a little bit further. Another thing to consider is kind of evaluation firms and evaluation teams, as well as independent evaluators, which can sometimes bring a unique perspective since they have that outside independent experience and can be a little more non-biased when it comes to looking at your data and evaluating your organization effectively. So some different things to consider when it comes to kind of identifying potentials. And lastly, our tip for step 4 is stuff we've already been saying already, which is evaluators are not a one size fits all. So if there's anything you take away from today, it's that just because one organization might like an evaluator doesn't mean you guys will. So just keep that in mind when it comes to searching for an evaluator. Let's have an open mind and explore all of our different options so we can choose the best fit for our organization. Determine evaluator fit. Now we're on to step 5. When we're here, we're really looking at the best evaluator is usually more than just a simple contractor. Really, we're looking for someone who understands your mission and your community. Someone who only wants to come in and know your mission, your evaluation plan, your data you're looking at and need to collect and or evaluate might not be a great fit for everyone. Some people that might be fine. You want to work side by side, you give them the data, they evaluate it, spit back out your results. If that's something you're looking for, just know that ahead of time. However, a good evaluator tends to be someone who more wants to get in, understand your community, understand the needs of your organization and your mission and your vision. And they also are usually better at adapting to the changing of your needs, because an organization, it can be fluid over time, the way what you need to address, but based on funding, based on what's plaguing the community and what needs to be addressed. So being able to kind of adapt is something you want to make sure you're looking at as well. You also want to look for someone who builds relationships, someone who wants to be there, wants to meet your stakeholders, wants to meet your sector reps, has that buy-in, wants to know who's helping do this work, building those different relationships, because it's going to help you in the long run improve your work and better serve your community. And then lastly, you want someone who communicates effectively. And here we're at tip number 4 is evaluation should be relational, not transactional. When it comes to looking at evaluation, a good relationship with an evaluator is one marked by a true understanding of not only the project being evaluated, but also the organization and the community in which it is trying to impact. The heart of ECS's evaluation work is really the ability to be present and take the time to understand the needs of organizations and communities. We have seen firsthand how thoughtful evaluations such as this strengthens organizations and communities. We've also seen how our clients have used evaluation findings to secure new funding, renew grants, expand programs, and even strengthen some of their local partnerships. So that's truly kind of that relationship aspect that we love to see in evaluation. So now let's get into questions to ask a potential evaluator. So here's what we're looking at. During the initial conversation, it can be important to really ask the question, how do you approach stakeholder engagement? Whether or not that is what your evaluator does that you're talking to could make or break whether or not you think it's a good fit. This can be both a double-edged sword. It could be good, it could be bad, but most of the time, the more experience an evaluator has with a specific project or even a specific funding source, usually the better your evaluation will turn out being. They've done it before, they have a process. Not to say that going with someone who is very fresh and new with a certain type of project or funding would be bad. Just make sure you have that communication up front about it and you have plans in place to make sure that it's still a good evaluation in the long run. How do you tailor evaluation plans? Knowing how an evaluator will tailor this evaluation plan to your organization and your needs is important. Sometimes those larger firms can be very tip, tap, tap, spit it out, here you go. And it's very computerized, it's very similar to everyone else's. Whereas if you get more of kind of your mom and pop shops, your evaluation teams, maybe a sole evaluator, it can be a little bit more fluid, a little bit more customized. So just make sure when you're shopping for evaluators, you kind of ask that question. What does your evaluation plans look like? How do you tailor them? What does that process look like? How do you communicate findings? So this goes back to that communication piece and making sure they can communicate with you effectively and how they do that. Lastly, how do you ensure data is useful beyond reporting requirements? This is a big one because sometimes, again, we get so focused on checking the box of, did we report this data that we had to for this grant? Yes. Okay, cool. We're done. But then sometimes it's also important to know, hey, beyond just the reporting aspect of it to meet this grant requirement, how else can this data be useful to us? Because at the end of the day, we want our money to stretch as far as it can because Lord knows our budget is usually not very big. So in order to kind of make sure that we are getting the most out of our bang for our buck, so to speak, it's really important to know how else your evaluator intends on using that data and making it useful beyond just a requirement. Is it going to help us secure more funding? Is it going to help us plan for sustainability for when funding does run out? What does that look like? So just making sure to have that question when you talk to an evaluator, a potential evaluator as well, can be helpful. Now let's talk about experience and expertise. This might be some kind of common things to look for when we're talking about that experience and expertise, because at the end of the day, it does matter. So what to look for? Relevant evaluation experience. This is where sometimes I was saying having explicit experience with a grant that you might be working on, a project that you might want to evaluate can be helpful. Again, not that they always have to have a lot of experience, but sometimes the more experience they have does matter. Diverse methodological expertise. This can be a big one too. You want someone who maybe has experience in multiple different areas, really diverse amounts of knowledge, so you know that you're getting the best evaluation for your project. Strong communication skills. Again, we can't say this enough. An evaluator is only as good as their communication skills, and if they can't communicate what they're doing, which means you can't then communicate back what you're doing, the communication bridge just falls apart and the evaluation is going to suffer, the organization is going to suffer, and therefore the community will suffer. We've seen it happen. Just make sure that you're on the same page as your evaluator in terms of communication and how you guys are going to communicate to help kind of prevent that communication bridge from collapsing. So that's just another kind of experience tip to make sure to keep in mind, is that they're a good, well-seasoned communicator and know how to communicate with their organizations that they serve. Understanding of community-based work, another huge thing you want to look for. And then lastly, the ability to translate data into action. Another one of our tips comes in here, and that's going to be the goal. Find a strategic partner, not just a data collector. So when you are looking at experience versus expertise and kind of really shopping around, talking to some different evaluators, you really want more of that partner. You want that relationship, that strategic relationship, not just someone who's going to sit there and kind of funnel in your data, and then pop back out a report for you. So keep that in mind. Now we're on to some mistakes to avoid. These are mistakes we've seen. We've had other clients come to us and say, they've had this happen, or we've seen it happen, and that's okay. Mistakes do happen. But these are common mistakes you want to avoid when you are shopping and really communicating, trying to find an evaluator. Do not wait. Do not wait until that grant is awarded. We can't say that enough. Do some shopping early, do some planning so that when you do get the grant, you're ready to go full steam ahead looking for an evaluator and not kind of delaying that process of getting the evaluation plan set up, an evaluator in process. So do not wait. Do not focus only on compliance. This can get you, again, kind of down a narrow hallway, narrow-minded, and you're solely focusing on compliance. So just make sure to not worry about that too much either. Choosing solely based on cost. Cost does not mean good evaluation, nor does a low cost mean bad evaluation. So just keep that in mind when you're looking at that kind of cost at the end of the day of, hey, does that determine whether or not they're a good evaluator? No, not always. Sometimes we know cost can be restrictive, so just keep that in mind. Underestimating staff time needs. This is a relationship. A lot of times people get hung up on, oh, I chose my evaluator, here's all my data, I'm done. No more time needed from me. No, evaluation is a process, it's a communication, it's a relationship. We need buy-in from both the organization and the evaluator to really be able to put together time to create a great evaluation plan, great evaluation work, and at the end of the day, have a good product that both the organization and the evaluator are proud of. So just keep that in mind. Treating evaluation as a one-time event. So same thing, those two kind of go hand in hand. You have to know the staff time and also know that it's just not a shaking of the hands, okay, you're now our evaluator, we're done. No, there's that relationship piece. It continues on throughout the evaluation plan and the data collection and everything else. And lastly, selecting an evaluator without assessing fit. Always, always, always have meetings, ask your questions, make sure it's a good fit both relationally, organizationally, professionally, whatever that is, whatever questions we need to get down to the bottom of, always, always assess fit and don't just pick blindly based on cost or being compliant or checking off a box on a grant requirement. We highly, highly definitely say do not do that. So just make sure you're always assessing fit and making sure that it's a good fit. All right, to close out for today, let's talk about key takeaways. What we want you to remember. Evaluation is about improvement and impact. So evaluation is not research. So that's the first thing I want you to keep in mind. Next, define your needs before seeking an evaluator. Knowing your needs, knowing what you're looking for, and having that clear cut, we know what to take to the table when we're talking to different evaluation companies or firms or teams is really important because if you know what you need, it's easier for us to help you develop a plan and make sure that, hey, is this a good fit or not? If you come to us not sure of what you need, then there's kind of that backpedaling and we need to help you kind of understand that first. And it might be more back and forth between you guys going back and talking to your stakeholders or your board members more and saying, hey, what is this something we really need? Or is it this? So understanding that before coming to the table and seeking an evaluator can be really helpful. Next, understand available resources. There are plenty of resources out there, some free, some cost money, but making sure you know your resources first can help us better evaluate your projects and your impact. Next, look beyond data collection. Evaluation is not just simply collecting data. Again, evaluation is not research. So we want to make sure that a data collection that we do collect is purposeful, meaningful, and it's going to help us tell our story. So making sure to kind of have that in mind already before looking for an evaluator is helpful. And lastly, choose a partner who understands your mission and community. Treat this as a relationship. Treat it as someone who, if this were in your community and someone who lived there, would you partner with them? Would you invite them to your organization? Is this someone whose, goals align with what you foresee the community needing and how you guys are going to serve the community? Because if you are not aligned in your kind of goals and understanding and mission, it makes that relationship harder to kind of grow and really evaluate over time. So just make sure you know that as well. And lastly, a good relationship with an evaluator is not transactional in nature, but rather relational. If you don't get anything else out of today, I hope it is that, and that an evaluator should become hopefully maybe your best friend in terms of a professionalism way, because it should be someone who you can rely on to help grow your organization. Thank you all for coming today. I appreciate you taking time for watching this video. We appreciate you showing up. The last thing we want to just kind of leave you with is some reflection questions. So feel free to jot these down, take them back to your organization. It's a nice, easy way to kind of start the communication with stakeholders, board members, coalition members, whoever's at the table for this conversation. It's a great way to kind of start and look at your information and what we need when we do start reaching out to evaluators looking for an evaluator for our organization. So just keep these in mind. And with that being said, thank you everyone for coming today. We want to just make sure you have our contact information. And as always, if you are ever, interested in learning more about evaluation, planning, strategy, implementation, training, we're here for you. You can go to our website at epiphanycommunityservices.com. And my name is Jessica, so if you need to contact us, my email is there on the screen, jessica@epiphanycommunityservices.com. And with that, thank you and have a great rest of your day.